Tonight's highlights are brought to you by Hudson Cadillac Buick GMC. We're a good deal better.
Well, choosing the Hudson Valley Sports Report Dream Teams in boys and girls basketball are always difficult. And this year we ran into an interesting dilemma, and that was choosing a coach of the year for boys basketball. There were so many great candidates and so many great teams and so many great accomplishments during the year that we had difficulty in picking just one. So we went with co-coaches of the year, and our first is Scott Tampano from Beacon. Congratulations. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's talk about the obvious. 2 years ago, 2 victories in your first year, taking over for a legend nonetheless. And this past year, 16 victories, a berth in the Section 1 quarterfinals, almost to the county center before losing in that quarterfinal game to Lords. Talk a little bit about the obvious. How tough was that 2-win season on you, especially since it was just your first year?
It was definitely challenging going into it as a first-year coach. Following up behind somebody who had been coaching there for a long time, it turned into, you have this vision of how you think the season's going to go. And, you're going, you're fired up. We were coming off of a great JV season, and we had lost almost all the varsity players, and so it was the JV team coming up, and they're all excited. And it's, Coach, we had a great season. We're going to be great this year. Everything's going to be great. And I'm like, well, we have a lot of hard work to do. And the game started coming, and we were unprepared without, having a real senior leader and having that core of kids to kind of guide the younger players into the direction it had to go.
Had you found through your coaching career that meant a lot on every level?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely, when you have the kids there to guide everybody, that can hold the locker room accountable and can let the players know that, guys, we need to make sure we're working hard and we're working up to our potential and even exceeding that, it absolutely makes a difference. And having those kids there, it makes my job easier, because I can lean on them, and they're the ones who spring into action, and they're the ones, because they see each other every day. They see each other in the hallways, and they can get each other ready for the big game, whereas I'm there in practice and I'm there for the games, and it's really nice to have those kids who can really get them going for you when I can't be there.
Let's not talk too much about the 2-win season. Let's talk about this phenomenal job you did this year. 16 victories, as we said. As you're going along into the season, when did you start getting the spark that you got it together? I mean, you did well in your tournament, whereas 2 years ago when I covered you, you lost both games.
Right. Well, it was kind of funny. The season starts creeping on, and we started the first 2 games 0-2, and so inevitably, my thought is, oh no, are we going to fall right back into old habits? Right. But the mentality wasn't that. The mentality was, we need to work harder. And that was coming from the players. That wasn't even coming from me. And I was talking with my assistant coaches, and we're trying to come up with a game plan, and it was, we just need to be a little patient, and we need to let it roll a little bit. We need to learn how to win.
So did you feel like that this year you didn't have to do too much ancillary work, that you could focus on coaching, and some of the rest would take care of itself, as you were talking about with the leadership?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in the off season getting together the way that we wanted the team to look and getting them into condition. And so when the season started, we just went. And we went right into the offense and right into the defense, and it really allowed us to get on the ground running. And so the season starts, and we get a couple wins. Then we get the huge win against North Rockland in our tournament, and we start going through. And it was right about, it took me until January, because we had a little rough spot in the end of December where we dropped a couple games. But then after we beat
You did, yeah, you did, but you were one of the few teams locally anyway, other than Red Hook, who played Marlboro really, really tough. So even though that was a loss, that was kind of an eye-opener.
Right. Marlboro was a very challenging game, and we were right there the whole time. And we started to have the doubts, and we were down at one point. I believe it was around 16 points in the third quarter, and the players start thinking, oh, here we go. And then Alfredo Robles springs into action and starts draining 3 after 3, and we get a couple steals, and then we take the lead with 40 seconds left, and Red Hook or Marlboro just made some plays down the stretch, and they just they snatched it. But it was just it was actually right after the Poughkeepsie game that we won that I was sitting with my assistant coach in my office, and I looked at him and I said, oh man, we have a really tough stretch coming up. I'm not really sure how we're going to answer, and I'm really worried about such and such a player. And he looked at me and he goes, when are you going to realize that teams are afraid to play you guys? And so I sat back and I really thought about that, and I was like, we are performing better right now than we thought. Right. And that's when it really kind of clicked. And that's when I started seeing the team in a new light. And all the credit has to go to them. They're the ones who show up every day and they work and they run until they can't run anymore. And they do drills that we've done a million times before. They're the ones who do it. All the credit goes to them. I show up and I keep them organized and we drop the plays. But if they didn't go out and they didn't execute, then we'd have absolutely nothing.
Right. At any point in the season, did the winning become more fun than relief? At some point, you probably had to figure, okay, well, this is not a 2-win season. We're at 9 wins, we're at 10, we're at 11. I mean, did it become fun for you and the boys?
It absolutely did. As soon as we actually got to win 3, as guys,
right.
we've already won right. more, and then we kept cruising, and by the time we did end up beating North Rockland, that's when it became exciting, and that's when the mood totally changed, and that's when the players really started to believe that we could have something better than just a good season, that we could potentially have a great season.
From an X's and O's standpoint, did you change much from year 1 to year 2?
From year 1 to year 2, we put in kind of a different offense, obviously getting some new players, one in Xavier Mayo, that really changed things for us. To go from a 5'9" center to a 6'5" center changes things for you. Sure. And we changed things a little bit more defensively. We changed our defensive looks. We played a lot more man-to-man this year than we did the year previous. And it allowed us to get more of a flow. And the whole theory was we need to share the ball. Last year we kept trying to figure out who is the guy, who is our guy. And this year we sat back and we said we don't need a guy.
Right.
We don't need. You look around and you see 20 points per game, 25 points per game, and my kids they read the articles and they say, oh man, he's somebody so and so scored 26 points last night. I'm like, guys, we can score 10. It's fine if you score 10 and you score 10 and you score 10. If everybody's scoring 10 points, right. we don't need somebody to score 30. And that's where we found our success.
Scott Tampano, our Hudson Valley Sports Report Boys Basketball Dream Team Co-Coach of the Year. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Well, when you have a co-coach of the year, that means you have 2. And here is our second Hudson Valley Sports Report Dream Team Boys Basketball Co-Coach of the Year.
I thought we did a decent job on the boards. Like when a guy does something well, everyone's happy for him.
All right, so that's our co-coach of the year in action at the various gyms around the Hudson Valley, but now we got him sitting down nice and quiet here in our studios. Our HVSR Boys Basketball Dream Team co-coach of the year, Mike Kohler of Marlboro. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. Fantastic season. And I've asked this of other coaches, so I'll ask it of you to be consistent. At what point are you going along during this whole great ride and realize, wow, we could get to the state final four. We could get, we could win this thing.
As far as winning the state, probably after this, like the Spack and Kill game. Whether or not it's going to be a special season, honestly, after we won the Dutchess County tournament, and we had a lot of good wins in December. But the way we won the Dutchess County tournament, we won 3 games in 3 days. We won in overtime, kind of at the buzzer, last second shot. I thought we could really be special. And just the way we played early on, I see there was something there.
Right, and you won a lot of tight games early on too. We had the other co-coach of the year, Scott Tampano from Beacon, in here. You beat them by a point and had to, you surrendered a big lead and then had to come back and win it.
Yeah, and that's where we beat them by 1. We beat Lords by 1. And we actually, right before that, we lost to Poughkeepsie in overtime. So we played a lot of really tight games early on, and I think that kind of tested us a little bit and helped us out once we got down the stretch in the sectionals.
Right. And you had referenced that game a couple of times, that Poughkeepsie game, a couple of times during the year as a way of telling the kids, we can't sit on leads. We can't,
Yeah, I thought it was a big turning point, and how we dealt with it. The very next game, it was very similar. We gave a big lead, and we came back. We actually lost the lead. Beacon took a 1-point lead, and we actually came right back down that game. I remember Nick Mongelli came down on his own, made a little bank shot, and got an N1 and got the lead back. Right. And we were able to take a breath, and we were good. And after that, we just kind of got on a roll.
Speaking of exciting games, you talked about realizing where you could go and how special you could be. That Spack and Kill game was. We talk about this.
Yeah, I'll smirk every time I think about that game. Obviously, we're a shot away from not being anywhere, and in the 4.5 seconds, X made that shot. TJ had the wherewithal to get down the floor and hit X for that shot. When he shot it, I was right behind him. I really had no doubt when the shot was up. But that was just such an exciting game, back and forth. And I think it showed a lot of the character that our team had. Xavier, TJ, Jack, Nick, they all made big plays in that game.
Can you say now what you did now that we're out of season, and obviously some things will change with personnel, for next year. But can you say now, from an X's and O's standpoint, how did you kind of work this season, knowing that you weren't necessarily going to have a true big man?
I did.
I mean, you had hype, but you didn't have a,
the way we played, and I could even say we saw a little bit last year, because this was kind of like my second group last year, because we only returned really one starter. They moved the ball so well last year in practice against the first group, and you can kind of see the makings of that, and just kind of preach ball movement, which wasn't very hard. They like to pass it. Right. So every once in a while we might post guys up, but we, really just play. Right. And put guys in positions. Everyone on the team was able to play kind of everyone on the floor. Jack could shoot threes. He's our center, but he could shoot threes. X could play in the post. He shot three very well. All the guys could kind of play, which was great. So there was really no focus on, never really a talk with how about we didn't have a post player. Right. Just kind of went with the identity of the team, and they obviously passed the ball. It was the best passing team I've had in 11 years.
What was it like to coach that kind of team that had? I mean, you talk about Jack being able to step out. Xavier certainly can shoot the three, but obviously Nick can. Obviously Tyler can. I mean, to have that many players with that kind of range,
it's fun. And even like Joe Nugent, he'd hit a couple threes a game every once in a while. The Southampton game, I think that relaxed us. He hit 2 threes in the first 4 minutes of that game, and we relaxed. And then that opened up for Jack. He had a monster first half. He had 15 points in the first half. Right. It was fun. It's tough to guard, and talk about how balanced we were. In the section final game, TJ and Xavier had 51 points. The next game they had, I think, 9. And Nick and Jack had 30 points because they're just so balanced. And it didn't matter to any player on the team, just as long as the job was getting done, who was doing the scoring. That's, I think, a special thing about the group. They were just happy to play together and work together.
School's first trip ever to the Final Four, what was it like?
It was awesome. It was just a lot of fun. The atmosphere there was great. Obviously, going up there and playing well that first game was great. The first 4 minutes were a little nerve-wracking because no one... I think it was 0-0 until 4 minutes.
That was a bizarre game, and then after that first 3-4 minminutes, it's like you're gone.
We made 1 3, and then I think it seemed like we made like 8 out of 9. It was really great, and the experience, the way we went up there as a team, and again, just how happy they were for one another, doing well. Even the reaction, it really, obviously, no one ever wants to lose a game, but the kids realized how special it was, even right after the game, the way Nick Mongelli walked off the floor. And he really realized what he accomplished, what we accomplished as a team, as soon as the game was over.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of tears after the state title game.
No, and obviously guys are disappointed, but at the same time, they really knew what they accomplished. I said to him after the game, and guys like Jack's like, it really was an unbelievable season. And they got it right away. It really was, it was an unbelievable season. And I've said it a million times, a great group of kids. It was just a lot of fun. They enjoyed playing basketball together. They enjoyed working hard together. I always say, I think we're an underrated defensive team. We're a very good defensive team. They did a good job just playing defense together. So.
Well, it was a spectacular season. And that's Mike Kohler, our HVSR Boys Basketball Dream Team Co-Coach of the Year. Congrats again.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.